That was Sam Cedar, everybody. My real uncle, Sam Cedar, and not my fake imposter uncle, Chunk Weigert. Doing the most. Very reasonable voice. I always appreciate Sam's commentary and takes on the matter because, I think he has a way, and he has the background of doing this for many many years. I think that he has a way with his words, with his commentary that appeals to a lot of people. I think that are maybe already negatively polarized to the things that I have to say. So, great stuff. I'm glad that he, talked about his own personal journey of moving away from like totally lapping up ultra Zionist, ultra nationalist propaganda, all the way to questioning it and then arriving at the position that he's arrived at. And I think him not wanting to be called, no, he didn't say he doesn't want to be called anti-Zionist. He said he'd never called himself anti-Zionist. And I think that plays a role in exactly what I was talking about. Do you understand? Andrew Filer, thank you for the 20 community gifted subs, allowing 20 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour, by the way. He does not care about being called that. He's just saying he never called himself that. People used to call him that already. I think it's more of a testament to that label being like that label immediately shutting you off for a lot of people who are positioned against it. Yeah. New polling thread, American politics is undergoing a significant realignment. I think this is simultaneously one of the most important. I don't know if this is like a great realignment in the way that people are telling it, but I think this is simultaneously one of the most important social trends in the U.S. today and one that is most poorly understood. Non-white voters shifting away from the Democrats towards the Republicans. Last week, a New York Times poll showed Biden leading Trump by less than 10 points among non-white Americans, a group he won by almost 50 points in 2020. Averaging all recent polls, the Democrats are losing more ground with non-white voters than any other demographic. This is true. People often respond to these figures with accusations of polling error, but this isn't just one rogue result. High-quality, long-running surveys like this from Gallup have been showing a steepening decline in Black and Latino voters identifying as Democrat for several years. I've said this already. I think it's a consequence of like in prior years, Latinos or Black voters that didn't vote for the Democratic Party just stopped voting. Nowadays, there are more and more people in said demographics that are voting in the opposite direction. That is the new. That is the new part. America's Gold Standard National Election Survey shows a similarly sharp decline, with non-white proximity to Democrats now at its lowest since the 1960s, before the Civil Rights Movement and the 1964 election, which aligned Black voters with the Dems and against the GOP. So the non-white shift away from them seems very real, but what's driving it? One factor is fading memories. The Civil Rights Movement and 1964 realignment formed very significant and very strong political bonds for the people who lived through it, but this is less true for more recent generations. The bond between young Black Americans and Democrats is far weaker than among older cohorts. I don't think everyone appreciates that the familiar young favor Dems, old favor Republicans gradient we see in the U.S. population overall is inverted among the Black population. The oldest Black Americans whose political allegiances were formed in the 1960s and 70s identify as Dems over reps by a margin of 82%. Among the youngest Black voters who have grown up in a very different socio-political environment, the Democratic advantage is just 33%. The changing image of the parties Regarding class and income is also a factor. In 2020, the richest third of voters favored Dems for the first time. Yeah. And the Republicans improved with the poorest. The GOP now appeals to working and middle class voters of all ethnicities. I think that not doing enough, specifically not doing enough for the working poor, for the working class in general, from the Democratic Party is, and this same principle existed in the Texas GOP and how they were able to dominate the Latino voters in Texas in perpetuity. This very same principle exists nationally. Okay? Remember, one side offers nothing to you. The other side at least offers a solution and a fake problem. The same principles behind like showing yourself as a macho candidate. The same principles behind like all of the other forms of bigotry that definitely persist in every every subsect of the American population is absolutely, in my opinion, part of the reason. Democrats aren't giving you anything, but the Republicans are at least like preserving your guns, protecting you from protecting you from having your guns be stolen from you, or not letting your children get queer or whatever kind of fucking madness that they create. And also multiple decades of right-wing sentiment being expressed by both parties as it pertains to deregulation and tax cuts for the wealthy. Tax cuts in general. Obviously, tax cuts for the wealthy are not presented as tax cuts for the wealthy. Tax cuts for the wealthy are presented as tax cuts for the poor. It's sold to the American population as tax cuts for the poor. The starving the beast narrative that was born out of the Reagan years created a worse and worse government, increasingly worse government that was underfunded, with a hyper focus on only funding one institution, the military. And that, in my opinion, plays a big role in why people are way more willing and able to not fucking want to fund the American government at all. They're like, why the fuck would I go on Bad Empanada's fundraiser stream? I cannot. Bad Empanada is unfortunately banned from Twitch. I cannot go on his stream. He is doing an UNRWA fundraiser right now. And it's great. And I highly recommend you go show support to it. I personally cannot go on his stream while I'm live, however. Okay? I don't know why people don't see that. My cat hates turfs. Thank you for the 5. Get the subs. So beyond that, but fading memories and increased competition for working class votes are fixable problems. So long as these voters' values remain fundamentally aligned with those in the Democratic Party, the right reason, policy, or rhetoric can win them back. However, much more ominous for the Democrats is a less widely understood dynamic. Large numbers of non-white Americans have long held much more conservative views than their voting patterns would suggest. Their values are very much not aligned with the party. Now, and this is why I think the Hispanic voting bloc, which is very diverse, obviously, especially with like very specific carve-outs for Cuban voters and Venezuelan voters in places like Florida, for example, the Hispanic voting bloc wants, across all demographics, more social spending. I would say that the black voting bloc also has similar inclinations. Social safety nets are very valuable and very important. These are voter blocs that have not gotten their fucking brains lasered with American austerity and neoliberalist propaganda in perpetuity in a similar vein. They recognize the value in social safety nets. They still have somewhat of a belief in the government actually helping them, not in the same way that like white voting blocs have completely lost sight of that reality. However, That principle is changing because the Democratic Party is also not doing anything on that front either. So when that happens, and one side is not offering you anything and saying, no, things are fine. The other side is racist. The others, and they are, by the way, make no mistake, they are fucking racist. If one party, the Democrats, keep consistently saying, you have to vote for us defensively, you have to vote for us defensively, you have to vote for us for harm reduction, you have to vote for us because if you don't, then the racists are going to come in and charge. Most Americans will do that for 2 election cycles, but then they're going to fucking tap out. And many had tapped out for a while. But the other side is at least offering them a clear-cut reason for why they're experiencing economic hardships and volatility, even if it is a red herring, even if it is a false reality. Why are you angry all the time? It's not because the wealthy are robbing you blind. As a matter of fact, it's because gay people. It's because abortion. It's because this. It's because that. And obviously, it's different for the black voting blocks versus like Hispanic voters and whatnot. But the reality of the matter is, one side does not even work to try to address the problem and show what the accurate reasons for said problem are. The other side at least gives you a false analysis and then turns around and says, I will also help save some of the things you care about. But Republicans literally use non-whites as scapegoats and demonize them as non-American. I don't get it. You will never get it if you don't. You will never get this if you only are thinking with the old mindset. The further you move away, like these polls show, the further you move away from the civil rights era where the Democrats did do something for the black population, the government did do something, in comparison to genuinely being against it. The further you move away from that, the more people go, okay, well, neither party is giving me anything, so I'm just going to go and vote for the fucking guys that are at least like, I like guns. They're defending guns. This principle has been at the forefront of the Democratic Party's incompetence for my entire lifetime as I have observed the Democratic Party's operations. That very same fight you are seeing right now happen in real time. The more you capitulate the right-wing framing on issues and the more you refuse to counter narrative against things like immigrant crime, for example, and the more you cave and the more you concede that, yes, actually immigration is a matter of national defense and national security and not simply an economic proposition created by reactionary forces that want to create a steady pool of undocumented migrants that they can further exploit, that depresses wages for the natural-born working class and the other naturalized and documented working class in this country. The more you move away from that reality, the more people become reactionary. That's it. This is the fault and failure of the Democratic Party. They do not fight back against Republican framing on issues, and then they end up adopting it. And what do you think happens when they adopt right-wing framing? Well, you know what happens. People are going to go with the guy that they trust to deal with this issue. That's why Trump is always leading over Biden by at least 35 points last election cycle on the issue of immigration. And now it's like 60 points. Biden's arguments that they will be the ones who actually fund the police more than the Republicans, and Biden's arguments that they will be the ones who actually, have increasingly more white nativists and stronger immigration policies, is a massive failure for this reason. It goes beyond the ratchet effect that we've talked about, or I guess it's a complementary to the ratchet effect. And I don't think people recognize that. That's it. That's it. White supremacist propaganda also impacts non-white people. Internalized racism is a pervasive poison. That definitely is true as well. Wait, sorry, just asking for clarification. The Republicans want illegal migrants for labor exploitation? No, every capital. This is devoid of like the two-party structure. Capital owners want some migrants to be classified as illegal, so they are devoid of rights. So they have no legal avenues to resort to when they're being exploited. That's it. There's a secondary effect in that, in the creation of a temporary, a permanent underclass that also ends up depressing wages for everyone in the country. Okay? Because if we truly were a racist nation that like wanted to do Oregonian style intervention in immigration, we would start punishing the business owners that actually hire undocumented immigrants. That would destroy the agricultural industry. That would destroy all matter of food production in this country. Okay? Like, real racism in the Pacific Northwest was being for the abolition of slavery and being for making slavery illegal because you didn't want to even be around black people. Okay? This is a fact. Like, Oregon was a full-blown, no black people allowed state. They didn't want slavery because that meant slavery meant having black people live alongside white people. Okay? It's literally more racist somehow. A reliance on Mexican workers who contribute their labor to the U.S. economic enterprises but are denied access to the benefits that U.S. law affords its citizens has underpinned the economy for over a century. Take by Aviva Chomsky, who I paraphrase almost regularly anytime I talk about immigration. What you mentioned is literally this
Trump
clip.
or Biden?
Yeah, Trump.
¿Por qué?
No muchos inmigrantes, como nosotros también somos inmigrantes, pero no mucho.
No más.
No más.
Llegaste, pero no más.
Exactamente, no más.
Yep. I don't agree with you on how illegal immigration depresses wages. The academic consensus that illegal immigrants don't decrease wages. No. The academic consensus is that immigration doesn't depress wages, and that is true. The academic consensus is on immigration not depressing wages. Illegal immigration does depress wages. No, both the studies show both. I have the exact opposite sentiment. The exact opposite sentiment that is expressed by those who tackle this issue, especially those who talk about it. Those who talk about this issue in the form of like immigrants are taking our jobs. Okay? Immigrants are taking our jobs. Look at it from a framework that is fundamentally flawed. There is no concept such as undocumented immigration. There is a concept, however, of people being refused with the full knowledge that they will enter the country regardless. And our agricultural industry relies on it. Sorry, you got banned because you're not subscribed. Oh, dude. I love this study. Okay. The Cato Institute is a libertarian institute, for the record. I rely on them heavily when it comes to immigration studies. I knew you were going to probably use this one. This doesn't show what you think it shows, first and foremost. Okay? The Cato Institute wants to continue having undocumented migrants. The Cato Institute is the actual institute that loves the fact that they are undocumented. That's why they'll talk about immigrants being undocumented immigrants specifically being not a burden on the economy, but a benefit. It's true. On its face, it is true. Okay? It is. Because undocumented immigrants pay into the taxes, both in the sales taxes, but also pay into Social Security without being able to take anything out of Social Security. Okay? So technically, they are giving significantly more than they take back. This is something that the Cato Institute openly recognizes and sees as a good thing. Anyway, every undocumented immigrant pays into taxes, even property tax, so the notion that they're undocumented is laughable. Yes. A decrease in the supply of immigrants can only increase native wages if immigrants and natives are substitutes for one another. In other words, if they compete for the same jobs. See, this literally is stating that Americans who are documented don't want the shit jobs that are remained shitty as a consequence of having a fucking underfunded labor pool that will always replenish itself, that is threatened to be in that position at the barrel of a gun with the threat of deportation. Yeah, it's true, but this is a pro-capitalist argument. It also proves the point I'm making. It is exactly like I have read the Cato Institute studies as well. Like the Cato Institute will oftentimes say undocumented immigrants do not take anything from these social safety nets, with the exception of the 0.03% that they can utilize in the form of emergency rooms, okay, without paying. Right? That's the only thing that they get, which is true. Except I want to fix that structure. I want the undocumented migrants to be documented. Cato, I don't think cares too much about the fixing the documentation structure. They just simply talk about the current way of immigration being the way it is good, or they say it's not as bad as the way Republicans frame it.